You think you're in control of your peace. You're not. Someone else, or something else, has been deciding how you feel for a long time. And the worst part? You've been letting it happen. It doesn't show up as a thief in the night. It shows up as a quick scroll before you start your day that leaves you tense for hours. It shows up as that one conversation that feels small but sits in your chest for days. It shows up as the constant drip of noise, opinions, and demands that you've learned to call normal. Piece by piece, they've been taking from you. Not your money, not your time, but the one thing you can't afford to lose, the space in your own mind. When you lose that, every decision you make stops coming from clarity and starts coming from chaos. Today, we're going to expose the hidden forces that have been draining you without permission. The people you don't suspect, the habits you defend, and the thoughts you've lived with so long, you've started believing they're part of you. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to lock the doors to your mind and keep them locked. But I'll warn you, there's one final trap. One that even disciplined, strong-minded people walk right into. And if you don't see it coming, it will quietly dismantle everything you've built. Let's start. The first step to taking back your peace is to admit something uncomfortable. It's not always obvious who's stealing it. When you picture a thief, you think of someone breaking in, taking what's yours, and running away. But the real thieves of your peace don't crash through the door. They slip in quietly, smiling, acting like they belong there. Most people only recognize the big, loud moments of conflict, the fight with a friend, the crushing deadline, the bad news that hits like a storm. Those are easy to point to and say, "That's why I feel this way." But the truth is, your peace isn't usually stolen in one dramatic blow. It's drained, drip by drip, through moments so small, you barely register them. It's in the harmless conversation that plants a seed of doubt in your mind. It's in the notification you read without thinking that shifts your mood for the next hour. It's in the comparison you make scrolling through someone's curated life that whispers, "You're not doing enough." These thieves hide inside what you believe is normal life. And because you've learned to live with them, you stop noticing the cost. You've accepted that feeling tense, restless, or slightly on edge is just how life feels. But that's not life. That's a symptom of being robbed every day without fighting back. Stephen Covey often spoke about the importance of being proactive, not waiting for life to happen to you, but directing it. And you can't direct anything if your mental space is occupied by forces you've never even identified. So here's the shift. Before you can protect your peace, you have to name what's taking it. Not just in general terms like stress or negativity, but in specifics. What exact situations leave you feeling less calm than before? What people, topics, or environments consistently leave a heaviness behind? What small choices, the ones you barely think about, are costing you more than you realize? Start tracking them. Yes, literally write them down. Because the brain loves to normalize whatever it experiences repeatedly. If you don't bring these moments into the light, they'll keep blending into the background. And what blends into the background controls you the most, because you never challenge it. Think about it. How many times in the last week have you replayed the same sentence someone said to you? How many times have you opened your phone for just a second and felt worse afterward? How many times have you said yes to something small, but later realized it came with a heavy emotional cost? These moments are the fingerprints of the thieves. And just like in real life, once you identify the fingerprints, you can start building a defense. Here's the dangerous part. Some of these thieves will look like friends. They'll sound like care, concern, or just trying to help. But if the end result is you feeling less centered, less in control, and less yourself, that's not help. That's a withdrawal from your mental bank account. Some of these thieves will even come dressed as care, concern, or advice. They'll smile, they'll speak softly, and they'll convince you they have your best interest at heart. But the real measure isn't in their words. It's in how you feel after they leave. Lighter or heavier, clearer or clouded. If you start noticing the weight they leave behind, you'll realize something important. Not every battle for your peace is fought in the outside world. Sometimes, the real struggle begins the moment you're left alone with your own mind. and the thoughts it's been quietly repeating. Sometimes, the real struggle begins the moment you're left alone with your own mind. No noise, no conflict, no outside interference, just you and the patterns you've been repeating for years without even noticing. Most people think peace is destroyed by big events, but more often, it's the small, constant leaks that weaken you. It's the repeated thought that tells you you're behind in life. It's the mental replay of that one awkward moment from years ago. It's the silent checklist of everything you should be doing right now instead of breathing. These aren't dramatic enough to stop your day, and that's exactly why they're dangerous. Because you let them run in the background, unchallenged, while they quietly erode your mental stability. Your brain loves patterns. It will cling to familiar thoughts, even negative ones, because familiarity feels safe. If you've been worrying for years, your mind will default to worry. If you've been criticizing yourself for years, it will feel unnatural to go an hour without judgment. It's not personal failure, it's conditioning. Stephen Covey often spoke about the difference between being reactive and being proactive. When your peace is leaking away through these micro-patterns, you're in a reactive state without realizing it. You're reacting to your own thoughts, as if they're absolute truth, instead of seeing them for what they are, mental habits that can be changed. Think about how it works in your daily life. You might wake up, check your phone, and see a message that triggers a subtle irritation. You don't address it, but you carry that mood into your next conversation. That conversation feels slightly tense, so you overanalyze it afterward. While you're overanalyzing, you procrastinate on something important, which adds guilt to the irritation you were already feeling. By midday, your peace is gone, and you can't point to a single big reason why. That's the silent nature of micro-leaks. They're cumulative. One by itself seems harmless, but together they create a low-level stress that feels like part of your personality. You start thinking, this is just who I am. I'm always a bit tense, a bit restless. But that's not who you are. That's who you've become under the influence of these constant drips. Here's the tricky part. Your mind doesn't just hold on to negative patterns, it also justifies. You'll tell yourself that worrying is being responsible, that over-preparing for every possibility is being safe, that replaying conversation is learning from mistakes. But in reality, most of these mental loops aren't serving you, they're keeping you trapped. If you want to stop the leaks, you need to start noticing them in real time. Not later, not at the end of the day, but in the moment. The next time your mood shifts for no obvious reason, pause and ask, what was I just thinking about? Did I choose that thought, or did it just appear? Is it helping me, or is it just familiar? Awareness is the first step, but interruption is the second. You can't just see the leak, you have to turn off the tap. That might mean taking a 2-minute break to breathe deeply and redirect your attention. It might mean physically changing your environment, stepping outside, moving to a different room to disrupt the mental pattern. It might mean writing the thought down and asking yourself if it's fact or assumption. And here's where most people fail. They try to eliminate all negative thoughts at once. That's impossible. What works is replacing them one by one, consistently, until your default mental state begins to shift. Think of your mind like a garden. If you let weeds grow unchecked, they'll take over. But if you notice a weed early and pull it out, it never gets the chance. The earlier you catch a draining thought, the less damage it does to your peace. What's important to remember is this. No one else can do this for you. People can encourage you, inspire you, or hold you accountable, but only you can decide not to feed a thought that's stealing your stability. And the more often you make that choice, the more natural it becomes. It's not about becoming positive all the time. It's about becoming intentional, deciding which thoughts get to stay and which get escorted out. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If you don't take control of your inner dialogue, the world will happily fill it for you. And most of the time, it will fill it with fear, doubt, and comparison. Not because the world is out to get you, but because noise is the default. Silence, true mental stillness, is something you have to fight for. And once you've seen how your own mind can betray your peace, the next step is to recognize how other people, often without meaning to, can amplify those leaks until they feel like floods. Once you understand how your own mind can drain your peace, you start to see something else. Other people can accelerate that process, sometimes without even knowing they're doing it. It's not always about bad intentions. In fact, many of the interactions that cost you the most clarity come from people you care about, trust, or even admire. Think about the last time you felt completely centered, until one conversation knocked you off balance. It could have been a comment that sounded harmless on the surface. Are you sure that's the right choice? Or an opinion delivered with just enough certainty to make you doubt yourself. Maybe it was a casual complaint that planted frustration in your mind, frustration that didn't belong to you in the first place. Words have weight. Even short, passing phrases can carry invisible cargo: fear, comparison, doubt. And once they're in your head, they start influencing the way you see your next decision, your next step, your next moment. Stephen Covey often highlighted the importance of guarding your circle, not to isolate yourself, but to be intentional about the influence you allow. Because here's the truth. Every conversation is an exchange of energy. You either leave lighter or heavier, clearer or more clouded. But here's what makes it tricky. You've been taught to value politeness over protection, to keep listening even when someone is clearly draining you, to nod, to agree, to carry their concerns as if they were yours. And every time you do, you open another crack in the walls protecting your peace. This isn't about cutting people out at the first sign of negativity. It's about training yourself to notice the shift in your internal state during and after an interaction. Pay attention to the moment your breathing changes, your posture tenses, or your mind starts defending a choice you didn't even think about before they spoke. Those are signs you've just let someone else's thoughts take the driver's seat in your own mind. And sometimes, it's not even the words. It's the tone, the timing, or the repetition. A friend who always calls you only when they need to vent. A colleague who slips in subtle jabs under the disguise of just kidding. A family member who brings up the same old story about your mistakes, keeping them alive long after you've moved on. If you don't recognize these patterns, you'll start choices in response to someone else's emotions rather than your own goals. And when that happens, you're no longer living your life, you're managing theirs. Here's a practical way to see this more clearly. For the next week, keep a mental log after each significant conversation. Ask yourself, do I feel more focused or more scattered right now? Am I motivated to take action on my priorities, or am I suddenly thinking about theirs? Do I feel a sense of calm, or am I carrying a tension I didn't have before? You might be surprised at how predictable the answers become. Some people will consistently leave you sharper, lighter, more at peace. Others, no matter how close you are, will consistently leave you drained. And here's the hard truth. You can't change what other people say or do. You can only change the access they have to your mental space. That might mean shortening certain conversations, redirecting topics, or creating intentional pauses before you respond. It might mean deciding that certain subjects are simply off limits with specific people. At first, this will feel unnatural, maybe even rude. But remember, you're not protecting yourself from people. You're protecting yourself from the ripple effects of their influence. And the more you do it, the more you'll notice that your mind feels lighter at the end of the day. Now, there's another layer to this that most people overlook. Even when you manage to filter what others bring into your space, you might still be defending habits in your own life that are doing the exact same thing. Habits that feel comfortable, maybe even necessary, but that are secretly keeping you restless and unfocused. Even if you've learned to guard your peace from other people, there's another problem. The habits you've let live inside your life for so long that you don't question them anymore. The ones you've defended, justified, and even celebrated without realizing they've been quietly dismantling your clarity. They don't look dangerous. In fact, they often wear the mask of normal or even productive. Scrolling through the news to stay informed. Checking your phone every few minutes just in case. Keeping the TV on in the background so the house doesn't feel too quiet. Each one feels small, harmless, but together they keep your mind in a constant state of low-grade agitation. It's like trying to relax while someone taps their finger on the table, over and over, all day long. Eventually, you don't even notice the tapping anymore, but your body never fully rests. Stephen Covey taught that the way we spend our time is a reflection of our priorities. If your hours are filled with habits that feed distraction instead of intention, it's no wonder you feel drained before the day is even over. The real danger isn't just in the time these habits take. It's in what they train your mind to expect. When you check your phone every time you feel the smallest wave of boredom, you're teaching your brain that stillness is uncomfortable. When you consume news in a constant stream, you're teaching yourself to anticipate the next crisis before it even happens. When you fill every quiet space with noise, you're teaching your mind that silence can't be trusted. And then, when you try to sit down and actually focus on what matters, your brain doesn't know how. It's too used to scanning, refreshing, reacting. The hardest part is that you've probably defended some of these habits as necessary. You might tell yourself that you need to check your messages constantly to be responsible, or that you have to stay up to date with the news to be informed, or that background noise keeps you company. But ask yourself, are these things truly adding to your peace, or are they just preventing you from feeling the discomfort that would force you to grow? If you want to know the truth, pay attention to how you feel after engaging in them. Do you feel more grounded or more restless? Do you feel capable of making clear decisions? Or do you find yourself jumping from one thing to another without finishing anything? Breaking these habits doesn't have to mean eliminating them completely at first. Start by creating intentional gaps. Leave your phone in another room for the first 30 minutes after waking up. Set a timer and check the news only once a day instead of every hour. Spend 10 minutes in complete silence before you add any background noise. At first, you'll feel exposed, like you've taken off armor you didn't know you were wearing. But that's not weakness, that's space. And in that space, you'll find clarity that constant stimulation has been drowning out. Here's the powerful thing. When you remove even one of these habits, you don't just get back the time it took. You also get back the mental energy it was consuming. Energy you can now invest in the things that actually move your life forward. And this is where you'll notice something important. Even when your mind is clearer and your habits are cleaner, your environment itself can still work against you. The space you live and work in isn't neutral. It's either supporting your peace or stealing it. And the difference it makes is bigger than most people realize. You can change your thoughts. You can clean up your habits. But if the space around you is quietly working against you, your mind will always be fighting uphill. Most people underestimate how much their physical environment shapes their mental state. They think peace is about discipline and mindset alone. And yes, those are vital. But your surroundings send signals to your brain every second you're in them. And if those signals are chaotic, your mind will be too. Walk into a cluttered room, and you instantly feel heavier. It's not just about the mess. It's about what that mess represents. Unfinished decisions, postponed actions, unresolved tasks. Every object out of place is a small whisper saying, "You still have work to do." Now, contrast that with stepping into a clean, open space where everything has its place. Your breathing slows. Your shoulders drop. You're not thinking about what needs to be fixed. You're free to focus on what matters right now. Stephen Covey spoke often about creating environments that align with your highest priorities. If your physical space doesn't reflect the life you're trying to build, it will constantly pull you back into the one you're trying to leave. But here's the tricky part. You've probably stopped noticing the ways your environment is stealing your peace. You've adapted to the pile of papers on the table. You've tuned out the constant background noise from the TV or traffic. You've gotten used to bad lighting, stale air, or a workspace that forces you to hunch. Just because you've adjusted doesn't mean it's not affecting you. In fact, the effects are often worse when they're subtle because you never address them. If you want to reclaim your peace, start with one simple principle. Your space should support your clarity, not compete with it. That means removing visual clutter, even if it's organized chaos you think you understand. It means controlling the sounds you allow in your space, music, voices, notifications, so they serve your mood instead of disrupting it. It means making small adjustments that have big returns: better lighting, fresher air, a dedicated spot for focused work. You don't need a complete home makeover to feel the difference. Sometimes moving one distracting object out of sight can give your brain the breathing room it needs. Sometimes setting up a no devices zone can instantly change the way you feel in that space. And here's where it gets powerful. Once you experience the mental relief of a supportive environment, you'll start craving it. You'll notice how heavy certain spaces feel, and you'll instinctively want to adjust them. This isn't about being obsessive or chasing perfection. It's about understanding that your surroundings are either an anchor or a tailwind. They're either helping you move toward peace or making you fight for it every step of the way. When you start choosing your environment with the same intentionality you use to choose your friends, your habits, and your thoughts, everything else gets easier. You make better decisions because your mind isn't busy processing visual and auditory chaos. You recover faster from stress because your body feels safe in the space it's in. And once your environment is working for you instead of against you, you're ready for the next level, building an active defense system for your peace. Because clarity isn't just something you create, it's something you have to protect. When your environment starts supporting you instead of sabotaging you, you feel the difference immediately. But there's something else you need to understand. Peace isn't something you set and forget. It's not enough to create it. You have to protect it. Think of your peace like a well-guarded home. You can decorate it beautifully, make it a place you love to be. But if you leave the doors unlocked, anyone can walk in and undo your work in seconds. That's why you need a defense system, one that works for your mind the way locks and alarms work for your house. This system doesn't need to be complicated. In fact, the more simple and automatic it is, the more powerful it becomes. The goal is to create routines, boundaries, and checkpoints that stop threats before they can take root. Start with your mornings. The first hour of your day sets the tone for everything that follows. If you start it with noise, negativity, or distractions, you're handing your peace over before you've even built it. That's why one of the most effective defenses is a morning routine that is off limits to outside interference. No messages, no news, no demands from anyone else until you've grounded yourself. Next, build information filters. We live in a time where information is constant, and most of it is irrelevant to your actual life. If you don't actively choose what gets in, you'll drown in what doesn't matter. That means deciding which voices you'll listen to, in person, or through media, and which ones you'll block out completely. Then, create emotional checkpoints. These are intentional pauses throughout your day to ask, what's my current state? Is this feeling mine, or did I pick it up from someone or something else? If it's not mine, can I release it now? It sounds small, but these checkpoints stop other people's moods from becoming your reality. Without them, you end up carrying irritation, fear, or stress that isn't even yours. Another key layer of defense is selective exposure. You don't need to engage with every conversation, every invitation, or every problem presented to you. This doesn't make you selfish, it makes you strategic. Energy is finite, and part of protecting your peace is deciding where it's spent. Of course, no defense system is perfect. There will still be moments when something slips past your boundaries, a sudden crisis, an unexpected conflict, a piece of bad news you couldn't avoid. That's why the final piece of your system is rapid recovery. Rapid recovery means having specific, reliable ways to restore your clarity when it's shaken. It might be a 10-minute walk outside. It might be deep breathing, journaling, or calling someone who helps you see things clearly. The point is to have these tools ready so you don't spiral deeper into chaos before you catch yourself. Stephen Covey often emphasized living by design rather than default. Your emotional defense system is the ultimate expression of that principle. It's a conscious choice to make peace the standard and to treat anything that threatens it as something worth addressing immediately. Here's the truth. Most people wait until they're overwhelmed before they protect their peace. By then, they're already in damage control. The real power comes from being ahead of the threats, seeing them before they arrive, and shutting the door early. When you live this way, you stop being reactive to life. You start moving through your days with a quiet confidence, knowing you can handle whatever comes without losing yourself in the process. And there's one more thing. Even the best defense can fail if you're still holding on to the one enemy that doesn't knock, doesn't announce itself, and doesn't leave until you invite it out. It's the last, most deceptive thief of all. Even with the best defenses in place, there's one intruder that slips past almost everyone at some point. It doesn't need to break in, because it's already inside. It's the weight of your own past, not the big, obvious memories you've processed and told yourself you've moved on from. It's the subtle ones, the mistakes you still replay when you're tired, the moments you've never fully forgiven yourself for, the decisions you question late at night, even years later. These memories don't scream for your attention. They sit quietly in the background, shaping the way you respond to life without you realizing it. They make you hesitate when you should act. They make you play small when you should step forward. They make you brace for pain even in moments that are meant to bring you joy. Stephen Covey often spoke about the gap between stimulus and response, that space where you have the power to choose. When you're carrying the weight of unresolved past experiences, that space feels smaller. You react faster, not from clarity, but from old wounds. And here's the hardest truth. Sometimes, holding on to these things feels safer than letting them go. Because if you release them, you also release the identity you've built around them. The version of you that's careful, realistic, or always prepared for the worst. But the cost is enormous. You can't live fully in the present if part of you is still negotiating with the past. Letting go doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It means acknowledging the lesson, taking the growth, paying rent to something that doesn't serve you anymore. It's choosing to let that memory be part of your story, without letting it write your next chapter. One powerful way to start is to ask yourself, if this thing never happened, how would I be showing up today? Then, act from that place, even if it feels unfamiliar at first. Because peace isn't just about protecting yourself from the outside world. It's about refusing to be at war with yourself. And the moment you stop fighting battles that ended years ago, you free up an incredible amount of energy to actually build the life you want. The truth is, reclaiming your peace isn't a one-time act. It's a daily practice. It's noticing the thieves, closing the leaks, guarding your environment, creating your defense system, and letting go of the past over and over until it becomes second nature. When you live this way, you stop surviving your days and start leading them. You stop letting others dictate your mood, and you stop letting yesterday's version of you decide who you get to be today. That's when peace stops being fragile and starts being unshakable. If these words are resonating with you, don't just listen, commit. Decide that from this moment forward, your peace is non-negotiable. And life in a way that protects it fiercely. Because the world will keep trying to take it, but now, you'll see it coming. And you'll be ready. YSI estes palabras estando contigo. Suscribit ahora. Para recordar cada día que ya no estás dispuesto a seguir igual. Aquí somos muchos los que decidimos cambiar desde la raíz. Cada nuevo suscriptor no es un número. Es una promesa silenciosa. Esta vez, cumplo conmigo. Now, take this momentum with you and move straight into the next lesson that will help you strengthen what you've built today.